I first came to Indonesia more than 30 years ago. The environment astounded me. The people fascinated me. And I embarked on a 3-decade journey of discovery throughout the islands. I encountered extraordinary plants and animals, as well as legends of barely believable beasts. It dawned on me that many of the mythological creatures which have haunted our fairy tales may well have derived from here. So we're going on a quest for the real animals which may have inspired the legends of fire-breathing dragons, of fire-dwelling phoenixes, unicorns, goblins, and hobbits, our smallest and most mysterious relatives. Once you're away from the big cities, Indonesia is still a place of profound peace. Life remains barely touched by globalization. Here in Indonesia, it's the powers of the invisible, unseen worlds which still illuminate human activity. And with this light comes the shadow side, the darker dimension of both natural and supernatural powers. Over the years, I've seen a lot of strange things here, and heard even stranger stories, and experienced many phenomena which rattle our preconceptions of how life ought to behave. But the most startling revelations concern who we ourselves may be and have been. The most recent is of a 3-foot-tall human being who flourished as recently as 12,000 years ago, who lived amongst erupting volcanoes, who hunted pygmy elephants and giant rats, and was himself hunted by the ancestor of the Komodo dragon. He throws new light on us. The light also illuminates other dark crevices of legend. Throughout these islands there have long been tales of a small forest people, a sort of mini Yeti of the Southeast Asian jungles, who are occasionally fleetingly glimpsed in the deep forest. Just a myth, you might think. But that myth has now become a reality with the discovery of the remains of real hobbits, or, to give them their more formal name, Homo floresiensis. And if these little elves really existed, what truth might lie behind the myths of other legendary creatures? I know these islands pretty well, and I think I know where to look for the evidence I need. So now for the caves of the Hobbit Bones, on the worst road yet. We had to repair it ourselves as we went along, and when that didn't work anymore, it was the old-fashioned way. So the hobbits lived right here for at least 30,000 years, while Homo sapiens was filtering down through these islands to Australia. And here be caves for hiding. So this is the Liang Bua Cave, meaning cold cave. And despite its large entrance here, it is very secluded. And you wouldn't know that it was a cave until you were right on it. And here it is at the edge of this elevated, secluded little valley. Given the enormous international attention to this cave, you can see that we have a major defensive security barrier. It's an awesome, cathedral-like space. Not hard to feel those lives, stranger than legend, lived by those little people right here, with earthquake and eruptions, preyed on by great lizards and pythons, and, probably, by that larger, rougher man, Sapiens. Limestone caves such as these preserve ancient bones very well indeed, and it is right here, 18 feet beneath me, that most of a skull, a jawbone, and fragments of at least 7 other individual hobbits were discovered. They're slightly beneath an ash layer, indicating an eruption of the local volcano 12,000 years ago, above which ash layer we find no more indications of pygmy elephants or of hobbits. The discovery of this tiny skull in 2003 ignited a bombshell of controversy from which the dust has far from settled. It makes a major dent in our assumptions of who we can be. Brain size is one of the yardsticks by which we have separated humans from pre-humans. This contained a brain less than a third the size of ours, smaller than a chimpanzee's. Yet his teeth are completely human. His tools have been meticulously flaked and sharpened. His cooking hearths are charred with controlled fire, and he hunted pygmy elephants, as we can see from these butchered jaws. Pygmy elephants to us, elephants to him, which definitely required collaborative social behavior, language. So if, despite his tiny brain size, he was human, then what sort? Most anthropologists are arguing that he was a different, parallel species of man, Homo floresiensis, a first cousin. Others, equally respectable, insist he was us, Homo sapiens, marvelously miniaturized. Was, or maybe still is. There are hidden remote communities throughout Southeast Asia which have a haunting genetic distinction. The people are small. Surprisingly close to this cave, there is a village where this gene manifests itself in the men. We're only about 4 foot tall. This is one of those villages which our rat-wrangling Uncle Rolfino has told me about. Well, it's been quite a struggle to get to this remote little village in this hidden valley where we understand there are extremely small people. The smallest family of this little circular community are still hiding away in that hut over to my left there. So we can see that the people are of quite diminutive stature, but we hope to be able to persuade the particularly small ones to come out and say hello. I'm just wondering if this is going to require as much patience as goblins and phoenixes. When out comes this fellow. Bapak, selamat ketemu.
Di rumah.
Mungkin kita ke sana di situ. Jauh, tidak begitu jauh, Pak. Saya duduk di tempat. Oke. Mari silakan. I think he's on his way home and doesn't really much want to meet me. But he politely asks me back anyway.
92.
92. Oh. He only speaks this obscure dialect, so we need 2 translators. He's also as deaf as a post, but talkative. He says there are villages further up where nearly everyone is normal-sized, like him. Enough, he says. Let's find my sons. Well, he's a very charming old gentleman, and he's full of all sorts of fascinating stories, and I think you could say that he qualified as really rather short of stature. This is the father, this is the son. There are various other children in the family who are scattered about Indonesia, who in fact are the same size as they are. There are numerous other little people, mainly men, in this village. The women are of regular size, but this interesting gene is passed down through the men only, and we're not very far from the caves of the Hobbit himself. Might they have Hobbit blood in their veins? Is he Floresiensis, stretched, or just sapiens, shrunk? The genetic science has yet to be done. So I'm going home now to Bali. It's been an adventure, all right, where the truths have been just as much fun as the myths of dragons and phoenixes and goblins and unicorns and of those small forest folk in legend and ourselves, and in the hills of Flores still. For me, Indonesia is a constant reminder that the stairway of science is built with the steps of earlier myths, that the facts about ourselves today will themselves become myths. This human need of ours to categorize and fix into species and time frames seems to obscure the fact that we are transition itself, in constant flux, mutating through countless previous incarnations as fish, reptiles, mammals and early hominids to become briefly what we think we are now. As the self-congratulatory survivors of at least 20 species of pre-humans and some 10 species of humans, we might more properly refer to ourselves as Homo homicidens rather than Homo sapiens. And what of Homo floresiensis, that little elf in us all? What became of him? Where he didn't succumb to volcanic eruption, and where we didn't or couldn't interbreed, we probably ate him.